What is OpenCode? Well, OpenCode is the AI coding agent that is open. It is flexible. It is not tied to any one provider. You can bring your own AI provider. You can use your own API keys. You can use pretty much anything in this thing, and you can customize it to your heart's content via custom tools, custom agents, and all that stuff. I've been using OpenCode quite a bit for a long time now and really love several core aspects of it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the heck this thing is and why you should give it a try. It is free to use, so there is a paid thing, which we'll talk about that as well. But to use this, you just run a curl command, or you can do bun, whatever. And this will install this as an application you can run as both a CLI or inside of a terminal UI. And the way this works, again, it has a really nice native terminal UI, multiple sessions, so you can have multiple agents running in parallel. All you got to do is just open up a new terminal tab, open code, and get going. You can save and come back to various sessions. You can implement commands and run those commands and then trigger agents and do all that good stuff. So I'll show you a little bit of this stuff in action. But it's a really great tool, and the one thing I really like about it is if you're paying for something like Copilot already, you can log into Copilot and get access to all of the Copilot models directly in OpenCode, or bring your own API keys from any of the various providers. Or they also often have a free model available for testing at any given point. Like, for instance, if we head into OpenCode and I do models right now, you can see that right now there are a few free ones. Now, these might not be the best models, but if you're just wanting to give this thing a try, I do have a Copilot subscription. So for me, from Copilot, I have access to all of these different models that I can use myself. Or again, like I said, you can bring in your API keys for various other things. Now, the OpenCode interface and the way that it works, like if I'm in a site here and I say, let's update to Svelte 5 syntax everywhere. Now, this type of command is obviously only going to be as effective as the model, the tools that you're giving it, especially with Svelte 5 stuff. But you can see there's a lot of nice things. There's a lot of built-in tools to this where we have things like to-dos. Now, I've always found to-dos outside of something like Kiro to be kind of useless. I mean, I'm sure it's not useless for the AI to be able to go through and do these things itemized, but like I like a to-do list that's a little bit more interactive, where I'm able to tell it exactly which to do and which variety. I think Kiro really nailed that, even if their spec flow is a little heavy-handed sometimes. But as you can see, it is going through some of this stuff, and it is going to be updating it. Now, it does actually seem like with Sonnet 4.5, it's doing a decent job of actually pulling out Svelte 5 syntax. You know, one thing it's not doing here is it's not prompting me to accept or do this or that, but this is just with the normal build agent. Now, in addition to a build agent, there's also a plan agent built in, or you can customize your own and just hit tab to change the various agents that you have available. And likewise, when you run custom commands, you just hit / and your custom commands are available, as well as the commands that are baked into OpenCode itself. So let's take a look at the docs really quick. Again, you can get going with most providers here. I mean, the directory is huge. It all is easy to set up. Again, the terminal UI is nice. As you just saw, there's a number of extra built-in tools here like details, editor, exit, export, help, initialize to create agents.md, which this does use an agents.md for their rules. So things are nice and standardized and normal as you might expect them to be. You can always start a new session with new. The CLI is actually really nice for one-off things. You can use the CLI just by running OpenCode run. And what's cool about this is that means you can actually use this in things like GitHub Actions if that's the type of thing you'd want to do, right? Like maybe analyze my recent pull request and generate a change set. There's a number of things you can do here with the CLI that are super nice. Now, you can also use it inside of things like VS Code or Cursor just by running OpenCode in the terminal. It's a terminal UI, right? You don't have to have something special for that. Now, there's also the Zen mode. Now, Zen is a paid solution, and Zen is basically you pay OpenCode, and then you get access to the models that are within Zen, and you can see what these models are. You can see their pricing. It's interesting. I personally, since I do have a Copilot subscription, I haven't looked into using Zen, but for people who only want to pay for one thing, one place, and you're like all bought in on OpenCode, it's a nice system for them to have, to just be able to have it be like no stress, sign up, just use the thing. Now, as far as configuring this thing, you can add your own tools, whether they are MCP servers or fully custom tools that are just TypeScript code. It's really nice, and you're basically just defining things within a OpenCode JSON. Now, the one thing I really love about OpenCode is that sometimes these other sometimes these other terminal UI things or AI systems in general, they have like one very specific provider-specific way of doing things. Where with OpenCode, you can configure a lot of things, and you can have config files that exist globally down to your root project that have different configurations. So you can have your default configurations, you can have your local project configurations, which is really great for setting things up once globally and then dialing in locally where you need to. Now, also, as far as rules go, there is the agents.md file, but just like most things in OpenCode, you can actually customize this as well. There's a global agents.md file in config OpenCode agents. However, we'll look for the local one, then look for the global one, which is really nice to have. You can also specify custom instructions via an array here of various instruction files, and then you can even glob every single thing inside of a directory. Now, obviously, this is something you need to be careful with, because if you had too many instruction files, like if you glob a whole bunch of MD files in on every single command, your context is going to blow it up really big, and you're going to get terrible results out of the LLM. But it's really great that it gives you the option of setting up your own systems. And as somebody who likes to do that, I went nuts setting up my own systems to the point where it's probably detrimental to me. You can also have custom agents and subagents. Subagents are specialized agents that primary agents can invoke with specific tasks. So therefore, you can have your main agent that is like an orchestration that goes off and uses subagents to do various things. And likewise, I already showed you the two built-in primary agents. There's the plan mode and build mode. But again, you can specify all of your own, like a Svelte Pro that always wants to use the Svelte MCP or has specific instructions for your specific way of working. And these things are great because you can give the agents individual permissions. Like you can only write, you can only read, you can run bash commands or this or that. It's great. You can have access to this. You can use this specific model even if you want. You can control the temperature. You can dial it in. OpenCode is really a tinkerer's dream in many regards, because if you nerd out on some of this stuff, you can get in depth with it. Ultimately, though, sometimes that can lead to just tweaking knobs on a sinking ship, right? So it is like it's great that they give you those options, though. As far as models go, OpenCode uses the AI SDK and models.dev. Support for 75 plus LLM providers, basically giving you access to most of the stuff most of the time, and they're really quick on getting all of the new stuff into OpenCode. So you never are wondering am I gonna have access to the latest Gemini or whatever. There's themes, which are great because, man, I love adding themes, right? You can just change your theme. Look at that. You can even get a nice little preview. For somebody like me, I like having that. I like having that, as dumb as it is. It does nothing other than just makes me happy working. with themes. So that's great. Key bindings, you can specify your own custom key bindings if you would like. That's great. Again, OpenCode is very customizable, and I love that. Commands are super useful. There's a number of built-in commands, but you can specify your own. Like, let's say you want to have a command that just runs your linting and then fixes things. You could just / lint and fix, and then that command is basically an MD file where you can specify some custom context for anything, and it's going to be basically the instructions that the command should do. Now again, these commands are not like JavaScript code. These are Markdown, but you can use arguments, which I actually really like. I found this to be troublesome in many other applications, but if you want arguments, you can use $ the number for the number of the argument, which makes commands super useful in a way where you can actually target things. When we're working with LLM, so much of this stuff is non-deterministic that it's really nice to be able to pass some arguments and then make sure it knows what it's doing. Again, I really end up really liking this. The docs are great for this too, by the way. There's also built-in formatters so that your code can get formatted after it changes. I haven't really used this too much because I'm mostly really in my code already, so the formatting is getting applied while I'm not usually just letting the LLM go to town on my code. Permissions, you can give detailed permissions to all kinds of things from web fetch. Doom loop is a new one. Approve whether or not a doom loop occurs where the same tool is called 3 times in a row. I haven't actually seen this when it was added, but that's really neat that it's there. You can also have ask permissions for any time a file is changed or edited or anything. So the permissions can be ask, allow, or deny, and I actually probably recommend always leaving it on ask for everything because I kind of just need to know what it's doing, right? I need it to ask me if it should do it. There's also support for LSP servers, MCP obviously, and ACP. MCP probably being the one that you use the most, but getting your MCP servers configured is just a matter of a very simple JSON configuration. It does not support OAuth for MCP, but it says that it will soon, so that would be nice when that's here. One thing I actually didn't mention about agents and subagents that I really like, as opposed to something like Claude Code where you're just like, hey, please use this agent and hope it does, you can actually explicitly @ an agent. And if I have this quality reviewer agent, I can specifically @ it, and it's going to always invoke that agent without having to guess. That is something that I feel like Claude Code is certainly lacking, is some of these explicit commands, explicit arguments, these types of things where even though they do work most of the time, you still feel like you're guessing a little bit. I like the deterministic nature of an @ or an argument. And again, there's support for custom tools, which can be just straight up JavaScript that is running, and therefore you don't have to have it be done by an LLM. And tools can be used to accomplish things, all kinds of things, return data in a deterministic way. Now, what's cool about OpenCode also is that there are plugins and there is plugin support. In fact, recently people were talking about, Claude skills, and here's a plugin that someone created that matches Claude Code skills, so you can even sync skills and use Claude Code skills directly in OpenCode. So having the ability to install things to augment and work with this system, to me, is one of the key features of OpenCode. So I recommend, if you're using this stuff, if you like Claude Code, if you like any of these Copilot, CLI tools, or any of this stuff, I would highly recommend checking out OpenCode because I do really like it. And because besides being well thought of, I think it is very developer friendly. It allows you to actually be in control a little bit more, and it feels way less loose than some of the things I've experienced in some others. And the configuration options are pretty much endless and really great. So check it out, opencode.ai. If you hate this stuff, that's cool. If you love this stuff, give OpenCode a try. All that, either way, it's a fun project, something to be aware of. This is Scott. I'll see you in the next one.